Grace. They're coming.
When it comes to Resident Evil, no villain looms larger than Albert Wesker. From his double cross in the very first game to his superhuman mutations later on, Wesker has been the mastermind pulling Umbrella's strings and tormenting the series' heroes for decades. Ever since his fiery death in Resident Evil 5, fans have been asking the same question: is Wesker really gone? With Resident Evil Requiem taking the franchise back to Raccoon City and digging into its deepest lore, the possibility of his return feels stronger than ever. Today, we're breaking down 10 different ways Capcom could bring him back, from clones and consciousness transfers to family ties and anniversary surprises. Let's dive in and explore all the possible ways Capcom might use to bring back one of the most anticipated villains in gaming history. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Wesker's cloning projects. Over the years, the Resident Evil universe has teased us with the idea that Umbrella's experiments in cloning and genetic manipulation could open a door for his return. Wesker was obsessed with transcending human limits, and cloning was one of the many tools he kept in the shadows. Scattered files in older titles hint at Umbrella preserving their best assets, and whispers about resurrecting their elite scientists make the perfect clone idea plausible. One especially juicy detail comes from recent fan theories around Resident Evil Requiem. Speculation suggests the hooded man shown in the trailer could actually be a clone of Wesker, or somehow connected to Brandon Bailey. This name pops up in lore as someone tied to Umbrella's secret cloning experiments. The way the hooded figure behaves, calm, confident, with a helmet placed nearby in some scenes, fueling the idea of custom labs, backup bodies, and genetic victims. It's the kind of cameo that wouldn't just shock fans, but also serve as solid groundwork for a Wesker return via clone. If Requiem leans into cloning, it allows Capcom to resurrect Wesker without ignoring all the narrative threads Umbrella left behind. A perfected clone would carry his intellect, daring and threats, but possibly stripped of past failings. It would also tie directly into established Resident Evil themes of identity, scientific overreach, and what it means to be human when you're made, not born. Viral resurrection abilities. Albert Wesker's return in Resident Evil Requiem could feel inevitable when you dig into what the lore already says about his biology, especially his unique viral enhancements from Project W. According to the Project Umbrella file, Wesker Virus Analysis, Wesker isn't just another supervillain who died and came back. He was infected with a prototype virus, often called T-Wesker, that gave him powers beyond normal bioweapons, including regeneration, resurrection, and a body that can recover from even the most extreme damage. Here's how it worked. After suffering what looked like a lethal death during the mansion incident, when he was flung by the tyrant, organs ruptured, brain damaged, Wesker's body came back to life. The virus's abilities apparently allow it to return from total death, regenerating tissue, surviving brain trauma, and even reattaching limbs given enough time. In Resident Evil Requiem, Capcom could leverage these abilities to explain why Wesker appears again. Maybe his body was in suspended animation, maybe a remnant tissue survived, or perhaps someone preserved the viral strain and revived him. It also gives writers room to show him using these resurrection powers dramatically in a fight where he's apparently dead, only to rise again with wounds healing, maybe after a huge confrontation. Transferred consciousness theory. One compelling way Albert Wesker could make a return in Resident Evil Requiem is via the sci-fi trope of mind transfer. Wesker uploading or transplanting his consciousness into a new host. This idea isn't just fans' wishful thinking. It has a solid precedent in the Resident Evil universe. In Resident Evil Revelations 2, Alex Wesker actually does something very similar. She ends her own life in front of Claire and Moira, but her consciousness ultimately transfers into Natalia Corda, thanks to Natalia's special fear resistance trait. That mechanism shows that memory, personality, or mind transfer is possible under certain conditions in the lore. So, in Requiem, Wesker might have used something like this as a backup plan and transferred his mind into a host, either cloned, engineered, or otherwise prepared. The hooded man teased in trailers could even be that host. What makes this theory especially strong is that it preserves Wesker's original identity, including his memories, goals, and mannerisms, while allowing Capcom to explore fresh narrative angles, such as a new host, new conflicts, and possibly even the host's own resistance or corruption. If Requiem leans into this consciousness transfer theory, it could deliver a Wesker that feels both familiar and unnervingly new at the same time. The clone ringer switcheroo. One of the juiciest fan theories about Albert Wesker's return in Resident Evil Requiem is the idea that the Wesker we fought in Resident Evil 5 was never the real Wesker, but a decoy, a clone, or ringer placed in his role. At the same time, the true Albert Wesker slipped into hiding. It's a theory that stitches together several odd details and Umbrella's bids for backups. Fans point to moments in Resident Evil 5 that feel strangely off. Wesker acting more erratically, taking injections even though he's supposed to be immune, or being physically wounded in ways that the original Wesker never was. These oddities fuel suspicion that Umbrella might have anticipated his downfall and used cloning to preserve its influence. According to some fans' theories, the man defeated in Resident Evil 5 may have been just a clone, which is why some of his behaviour diverged, as he was challenged by Ouroboros overload and other vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, the real Wesker could be lying low, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge under a new alias, or even with a hooded identity. This theory aligns well with existing Resident Evil themes, including Umbrella's obsession with genetic experimentation and biological backups. It also aligns with the cloning projects and viral resurrection theories. If a clone can serve as a red herring, Capcom gets creative wiggle room in Requiem to bring the original back without undermining the emotional weight of Resident Evil 5's conclusion. Legacy Umbrella experiments. Project Ivan variant tied to Soviet clone technology concept draws on real Umbrella lore. Soviet scientists, or Soviet Umbrella collaborations, creating clones, or clone templates, for elite bioweapons, plus the Ivan bodyguards in the Sergei Vladimir Tyrant stream. This lore establishes a strong precedent that Umbrella didn't simply stop at cloning. They had entire operations that blurred the lines between body doubles, clones, and genetically engineered security forces. Project Ivan, in the fan theory version, is said to involve cloning operations that may have produced several backup Weskers, or at least individuals engineered to imitate him. The idea is that while the Wesker we saw die in Resident Evil 5 may have been the main version, another Wesker clone, or someone prepared under Project Ivan, was preserved in secret, possibly in a hidden Umbrella lab tied to Russia or former Soviet territories. This clone could awaken under experimental viral enhancement or undergo memory restoration, becoming effectively Wesker again. Using Project Ivan in Requiem gives Capcom flexibility, as they can restore Wesker with new twists. For example, this Wesker may not remember everything, or may be physically different, might have different flaws or loyalties. It's dramatic, yet plausible, given Umbrella's long history of genetic engineering, cloning, and backup protocols. Musical and symbolic cues. Sometimes it's not what's shown, but what's hinted at that tells the biggest story. Resident Evil Requiem is loaded with musical and symbolic Easter eggs that hardcore fans reckon are pointing to Albert Wesker, being much more than just a background name. One of the highlights is the hooded man's coat. It seems to mimic the checkerboard patterned outfit Wesker wore in Resident Evil 5, especially in visuals where his silhouette, coat, and even minor design details catch the light in similar ways. That kind of visual echo is classic Resident Evil foreshadowing. There's also a musical sting, a short musical snippet in the trailer that many believe is directly lifted from or inspired by Live Evil, the track used in the Umbrella Chronicles. That track itself is a remix of an older piece associated with Wesker's early chapters, Beginnings. Another symbolic cue is the word Requiem, which generally refers to a mass for the dead, a memorial, or an act of remembrance. In Latin, it often suggests rest, but in storytelling, it sometimes signals that something is not over. Perhaps this Requiem isn't a funeral, but it's a setup for resurrection, remembrance, or even Wesker's revival. Put together, these symbolic clues, the coat design, music cues, trailer imagery, and the weight of Requiem, all of which make a strong case that Capcom is teasing something more with Wesker than just a cameo. Survivor of volcanic death. In the canonical storyline, Wesker enters the lava inside a volcano after being mutated by the Ouroboros virus and is struck by rockets from Chris and Shiva. He falls, his body is consumed by molten rock, and the mission ends. Producer Masachika Kawata and past director statements confirmed that Resident Evil 5 ends with Wesker's death. But fans have noticed cracks in that definite death. Here are the key doubts people often point to. Lack of definitive body. No detailed visuals of Wesker's body disintegrating. No confirmed remains. Virus resilience. Ouroboros plus Project W enhancements give him a healed to near-death threshold. Perhaps lava damaged him severely, but didn't finish him. Foreshadowed survival tropes. The franchise has used resurrected villains before. Dramatic deaths that later get explained away via clones, regeneration, or transferred consciousness. Wesker is too central a villain for Resident Evil to leave his fate absolutely closed. If Requiem leans into this theory, it could position Wesker's aftermath in Resident Evil 5 as a near-death moment rather than game over. He might have been critically injured, submerged, but perhaps rescued or preserved in a state of trauma, only to emerge later stronger. Hidden cameo ghost in the machine. The hidden cameo theory proposes that Wesker might not storm back as the main villain in Requiem immediately, but instead begin re-emerging in smaller doses, like voiceovers, hidden files, distorted audio, or background visuals designed to signal he's still pulling strings from the darkness. It's a way to build anticipation and re-establish Wesker's presence without committing to a full resurrection plot. Fans speculate that while a full Wesker return might come later, Capcom may tease in cameos at the beginning. Glimpses of his voice logs, files bearing his name, are the Easter eggs creeping in the background that hardcore fans latch onto. If Capcom wants Wesker to feel inevitable rather than forced, hidden cameos are the perfect way. They reawaken the dread, remind us he's more than just lore, and let the audience feel the tension before the monster fully awakens. Legacy and family connections. Among the strongest threads in Resident Evil lore is his biological son, Jake Muller, introduced in Resident Evil 6. Jake inherited many of Wesker's abilities, including rapid healing, heightened physical strength, and even partial resistance to viral infections. In Project Umbrella's Wesker virus analysis, it's noted that the viral strain Wesker used carried over unusually into his genetics. Children born of those infected or altered hosts may display Wesker-like traits. In Requiem, Capcom could build on this lineage to bring Wesker back using family ties rather than cloning or resurrection alone. There is limited information on whether Wesker's bloodline is still active, with operatives or descendants whose genes carry the Wesker virus markers, giving them latent potential. Perhaps Jake or an unknown child could act as host, proxy, or even vessel for Wesker's return. The handsomely preserved genes angle gives plausible room for storytelling with the blood samples, inherited mutations, secret umbrella studies on survivors with Wesker line DNA yielding unexpected results. Another angle, operatives loyal to Wesker might have safeguarded family members or experimented on them, creating hybrids or hosts that are part human, part Wesker. That means Requiem could introduce someone who carries Wesker's genes and, through viral activation, gradually becomes more like him both physically and mentally, without being Wesker at first. That slow evolution makes terror more intimate. This theory leverages legacy and inheritance in a way that feels deeply personal. If Requiem wants emotional weight behind the menace, a return built on lineage rather than fantasy makes Wesker's coming back feel earned. Series Anniversary Surprise. Capcom has already hinted that Resident Evil Requiem isn't just another game, but it's tied to the legacy. Producer Masato Kumazawa recently confirmed that Requiem returns to the series' original overarching narrative featuring Raccoon City, the Umbrella Corporation, and plot threads many thought were closed. The timing also lines up. Requiem is launching roughly 30 years after the infamous Raccoon City incident in 1998, which alone gives it symbolic weight. Capcom seems to be positioning this not only as Resident Evil 9, but as an anniversary celebration and a chance to pull many old strands of story back into focus. Returning to Raccoon City, walking through its ruins, revisiting iconic landmarks like the RPD, and re-exploring Umbrella's secrets all feel like planned fan service for long-time players. This anniversary moment is the perfect cover for Capcom to bring back a legacy character. By leaning into nostalgia and the homecoming theme, Wesker's return could be treated as the reveal in the anniversary showpiece. The cloak of identity, like the Hooded Man, the symbolic name Requiem, and the return to Raccoon City all point toward a storyline that wants to honour the past and escalate it. If Capcom wants maximum impact, resurrecting Wesker through cloning, viral resurrection, or some other theory, as part of the 30th anniversary narrative gives it emotional resonance and fan excitement. Wesker's return could be Capcom's grand surprise, hidden in the ruins, foreshadowed in titles and teasers, and timed for fans who have been waiting decades. Marvelous verdict. After running through these 10 theories, it's clear Capcom has more than enough doors left open to bring Albert Wesker back. Whether it's a clone waiting in the shadows, a viral resurrection, or even a breadcrumb cameo hidden in Requiem's files, the groundwork is already there. Resident Evil has never been shy about blurring the line between death and return, and if there's one villain who deserves another curtain call, it's Wesker. The big question is how Capcom chooses to do it. Go too far into sci-fi and risk losing the horror edge, but keep it too safe and you miss the shock factor. Personally, I think a mix of family legacy and anniversary fan service is the most likely path forward. Wesker coming back tied to Raccoon City's ruins, while his bloodline still lingers, would hit fans with nostalgia and fresh intrigue at the same time. But what do you think? Should Capcom resurrect the original mastermind or let him rest in volcanic peace? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.